This Spotlight episode of the Boss Rush Podcast is brought to you by, well, you. If you want to support the Boss Rush Network and our family of podcasts, head on over to our Patreon at patreon.com/BossRushNetwork. Thanks for your continued support. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to a Boss Rush Spotlight podcast where we highlight some of our favorite creators, developers, and veterans from around the video game industry. I'm one of your hosts, Corey Dirrig, and alongside me, as always, is the mad pharmacist herself, Stephanie Klimov.
Hi, and don't forget, Paxil's here too because she heard about a game with cats.
Yes, Paxil is here. So it's funny you say that because my daughter refers to this as the cat game. And even though she's only 5 going on 15, she has been very interested in games like Zelda. She's very into Princess Zelda and, you know, Princess Peach right now, but more into Zelda. And I'm like, okay, we gotta aim you towards the Zelda part. But she refers to this as the cat game, and she likes the cats with swords. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that's great. This is awesome.
You know, my son too, because he's watching me, and I covered 2 cat related games, very different genres, Little Kitty, Big City, because I wrote a review for that, and then this. So he calls the other one the kitty game. He's like, this is the big boy, big girl cat game. I'm like, yes.
Yes.
I love that. That tracks.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm actually very excited to have these guests on because Stephanie, you went and visited this booth at PAX, and it is a very, I would say, very unique studio in the gaming industry. Female-led, female-owned, female-run studio, something that you don't hear really at all in the video game industry. And so, yeah, you want to talk about your experience at PAX, and then we'll bring in our guests and let them say who they are and what they do and all that stuff.
Sure. Like most of my most memorable experiences at PAX, it usually comes upon at a most random time. Because what I do is I write out a list of the must see, then the maybe can see if I have time, and then random, and then Astral Clocktower Studios for Kristala was on my absolute must see. But I was a bit turned around. I forgot what day it was, and I don't think I had an interviews. I'm trying to recall if I had an interview scheduled or if I just made it a point to swing by, but I did, and I met Sarah. We chat a bit. She gave me one of the crocheted cat paws that I still have and I love. It's very memorable. I got to check out some footage in the background, got to ask Sarah some questions. I wrote an article, and that's when I knew it was like they got something wonderful here. The design, the thoughtfulness of it, and I said we have to get them on a spotlight.
Yeah.
And so I'm very grateful that they are here today.
Yeah, I am too. This is something that we've kind of talked about since PAX, because we've been writing down, kind of who would we like to talk to after PAX, because various reasons. But like I said, this is a very unique studio that I think deserves more attention, and so we are trying to do that, bring more attention to their game, to the studio. So let's bring in today's guests from Astral Clocktower Studios. We have Alexis Brutman and Sarah Schaffstall. Thank you for joining us tonight. This is awesome. Who are you? Why are you important? Why should people be paying attention to you? Allie, we're gonna go your way first.
It's a very existential question. Why am I important? But I'm Alexis Brutman. I am the founding owner and producer at Astral Clocktower Studios. I think that's all I have to say right now.
Okay. Sarah, why are you important?
Oh, so many reasons. No, I'm just kidding. I'm Sarah. I'm one of the three owners at Astral Clocktower Studios. I joined Alexis after she founded the studio. And then I also serve as our marketing director. So, really, anything that falls into that space, from managing our Discord community to managing our social media, newsletters, Steam updates, all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I really enjoy it. It allows me to be very loose and free with our brand voice working in the gaming space. So it's been very fun.
Yeah, I was telling you during like while we weren't recording that I really appreciate the stuff that goes out on Twitter. I'm obsessed with watching the videos and the art that you put out and the videos of just the movement or the lighting or the characters kind of fighting. And like you put out one of a new enemy recently that was kind of large and scary, and I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. And so yeah, I, as somebody who went to art school, I love that stuff. I don't know if I'm in the minority or not, but I love looking at that stuff. Like I was telling you, like there's one video that I don't know if anybody else that would find it like maybe interesting, but I loved it. Like there was a gauntlet or a glove or something that was just turning, and the gold was very shiny, and like you could see the stitching in the glove, and I was like, oh, I could watch this all day. I could watch this glove spin all day.
Yeah, thank you. Well, that's one of the things that's cool too, is like how um dependent's not the right word, but like cyclical the relationship between like dev and marketing can be, where it's like I need them to do my job, and you need marketing these days, to get your game out there, unless you're like that unicorn that just like blows up with no marketing whatsoever. But yeah, it's really cool. We have the way Allie kind of set up our studio as the producer is we're a virtual studio, first of all, and we operate in a Discord server. But every Friday, each team member shares like what they've been working on that week, and they're very trained to share like videos and screenshots, so I can do my thing. Yeah, it is cool to see that stuff. I don't think you're in the minority. So
Yeah, it's always great to see. So we were kind of talking a little bit before we started recording. There's not a lot of game dev experience in the ownership. So like, not that that's a bad thing. I actually think that might be a pretty good thing in a lot of cases, because you see a lot of studios kind of going through some, we'll say, interesting times right now. Why games? Why now? Why did you guys just start to make a studio? Like why is games a thing for you now instead of previously? Like
I was a software programmer for years before I got into game development. It's a pretty similar field, but a lot less fun. So, you know,
it's fair.
I used to look forward to, the end of the day every day just so I could get home and game. When I got home, there was, one of the games I got most obsessed with was Bloodborne. And then after I finished it, and I started reading into it all the time, and I realized there really was probably never going to be a sequel, no matter how much everybody wished there would be. And it made sense because of the way the story was all wrapped up in that game. Like I'm not butthurt about it. It just made me want to go make my own game that gave me the same kind of feelings. So, and I was kind of miserable at that time anyway. So I was like, you know what? I did the degree that let me have a good job and be successful, but now I'm going to go do something that I actually want to do, not something that I think is the responsible thing to do. So I went back to school at the time. I still had to work full time, so I did it online and like kind of on the side, and then also taught myself a lot of stuff on the outside, because there's only really so much school can teach you. And at that time, at first, my goal wasn't necessarily to start a studio; it was just to get a job I liked more. But then I met our other partner. That's she's not here today. Her name's Tiffany. She was one of the only other women I encountered in my game dev program, and we were put together in a group. And I had already, before this, I was looking around for, like, one of the things that happens often in the indie world is you kind of pay your dues by volunteering your time working with a smaller indie operation, and learning how to really be a dev and work with a team. And so I had found something like that, and it was very, very disorganized. It didn't go. It was. It didn't go very well. And it's not because they didn't have good devs. They had somehow managed to gather something like 60 really good developers to work for them for free, but they just didn't know how to use what they had managed to put together. And so I kind of sat back and I was like, yeah, I could definitely do better than this. So after that, when I met Tiffany, I was like, hey, I've been really wanting to make a game outside of school. Once we're done with this project, do you want to do something like that with me? And she said, yeah, sure, that'd be awesome. So first it was just her and I was working as a software programmer at this day job I had at the time that Sarah was working in marketing at. So we had just started, and Tiffany and I were discussing the kind of things we might want to do. And I met Sarah, and one thing I had read over and over again in my research when I was deciding to do this was that if I was going to make a game on my own and have it have any sort of success or, get noticed at all, it needed to think of marketing from the get-go. And then, one day Sarah heard me talking about a cat and introduced herself to me. I had just found a kitten, my kitten Atreus. And I was talking about how I found him like inside this engine of a truck. And she was like, oh, you're talking about cats. And then she came over and said hi. And I think like within the first day of knowing Sarah, I was like, hey, you should be my partner in this game studio that I just started. And that's pretty much how that I roped Sarah in. She didn't really have, I'm not sure she was thinking about it before that, but I'm damn glad she thought about it after that.
You got sucked in, huh?
That's
Yeah,
awesome. Hey,
yeah.
people bond through love of animals, especially cats and or dogs or both.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, it's funny. We actually became very best friends because of a cat.
Appropriate now that we're
Yeah,
that we're
it's so
making
funny how it worked out. We didn't even know we were making a cat game yet at that point. So,
What's it like functioning as a completely virtual studio? I know you mentioned a little bit about going through Discord, but
yeah.
what are some of the obstacles, or do you feel like it's been pretty smooth?
I would say actually, it's kind of like I set up the studio in the way that I always wished I would find a job that operated this way. Like it feels like it
Oh,
wasn't
okay.
like I think everybody realized after 2020 that remote work was so much more viable than they thought. But I knew from the get go that I didn't need to be commuting 30 minutes, an hour into the office every day to do my job. In fact, I'd get more done if I didn't have to get up and get dressed and go do that. So when we started the studio, it was like, well, you know what else is really great about being remote is your talent pool is the entire globe. You can find the best of the best devs or,
Yeah.
from anywhere, as long as, you can figure out the best, you can communicate properly. But these days, even if you don't speak great English, you can still manage to communicate pretty well, especially if you're in the position to talk via text, right? There's a lot of options for that now. But we don't have too many people that really can't speak English at this point. But um, I would say the biggest obstacle really was just coordinating time zones. So, like, we have
Mhm.
people on the team that are in Asia, for example, and they're like 14 hours ahead of us. So, when I set meetings, I typically expect that I'm not going to see them there because it's 4 a.m. for them or whatever. So, I just always catch up with them later. But I've gotten really good at, figuring out how to make it work for everybody. We have always had a system where it was like, you set the time you work when it works for you. So, even if we are in the same time zone, I'm going to work when it works best for me because that's when I do my best work. There's another thing I always thought was kind of lacking in corporate environments is like, I'm terrible at 9 a.m., but I'm great at like noon.
Well, I think that's fantastic that you are recognizing where you are most efficient and building your business in that manner, because some people they function just fine on like your standard, I'm just making it up now, 9 to 5, go to the office, lunch at noon, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah. But you know what? If we really want to take a step back, not everybody functions at their best at their best self well, I keep saying the word structure, but in that manner.
Yeah.
So that makes a ton of sense. If you feel like you are at your best, like you said, either at noon or at 3 p.m., like morning or evening, why do you have to stick to what's always been traditional, so to speak, in the
Yeah.
workforce?
It's really nice too. I love, like, as a women-owned studio, obviously, like, hearing from diverse voices is important to us. And so having that kind of like worldwide diversity, it really helps to like diversify the themes and characters and storylines that go into Kristala and, you know, and the future games that we'll make together. So yeah, I love that talent pool, that worldwide talent pool, like you said, Allie. It's definitely one of my favorite things.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
that's
it's done a lot for
impressive.
the story. Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you.
No.
I was saying, I
There's
think it's done a lot for the story and the way that we've like segmented the world to to have all these different cultures, because we had direct influence from people on our team we could talk to, so we could make sure we didn't mess it up.
right. No, that's really inspiring. Like what kind of so adjacent question. So A, how large has your team grown and like what are examples of some of that influence? I know you said you have some that work in Asia. Is it just some in Asia? There's some in Europe. Like tell me more about the team.
Over the past, how long have we existed? Since 2018.
Mhm.
We've had people on almost every continent. I think I think we have had people on everyone but Antarctica, right?
That'd be impressive.
I think so. So, uh, right now we have a lot of people from South America and Europe. But I mean, over the years, we've had people from everywhere. So I think that's been good for the story. I forgot what your original question was, though, when I was thinking about that. Do you
Oh,
mind?
just, how large has your team grown? And
Oh, right.
you, in
Okay.
a sense, you kind of answer the question of, has people from other countries influenced your game? And the answer is technically yes, because I feel like if you widen the diversity pool, I just feel like you're more likely to get like better ideas and cooler, more unique, eh, you know, suggestions.
Yeah, definitely, and that's been true. I think we're up to like 40 people now. Is that what it
Oh,
was when you
nice.
checked, Sarah? Yeah.
Yeah, I recently had to update, well, willingly. It made it sound like that was not a task I wanted to do, but I wanted to make sure everybody on our team is on the website as we head towards release for Kristala's early access. So yeah, I think it was like 42 or 43
Wow.
team members. And we do have like some interns, which is another thing we like. I know, Allie, you can speak on this more, but some of the struggles you can have as a new developer, just getting your foot in the door. So we wanted to make sure we allowed that opportunity for, students and people who want that, foot in.
As another group who works remotely, all of us kind of, I mean,
Nice.
yeah, I don't know if anybody lives in the same place with us, but like, it's been interesting trying to grow a brand and a group from all over. And I don't know, I feel like that kind of makes you stand out and makes you grow in a different way than if you were all together, because like it kind of teaches you how to deal with different things in a different way, right? And so did you envision it being that way when you started, or did it just kind of happen, or are you just did you just say, look, we need to look for the best talent that we possibly can, and it doesn't matter where they're from?
Honestly, initially, I was like, who has skills and is willing to work with me?
Fair.
So I did not care where they were from at all. Actually, the first person that we hired he still works with us. And I found him randomly because there was an ad on Facebook about somebody, or it was like a scam ad about going to game tester school. And so I commented on like, don't pay these people to be a game tester. You can do that without paying for a degree. And he wrote me for some reason about that. Like, yeah, that was nonsense. And then I realized he was a modeler, and I was like, oh, hey, do you want to make a video game? And he's been with us for the entire 6 years. Yeah, I mean, really, it just kind of worked out with luck. That from the beginning, it was always like, are you willing to contribute your time? Because we didn't have any money, so it was, so that's really where where it was. It changed a little bit more when we got some money into the studio and we were able to like actually start paying people to do jobs. So, at that point we were a little bit more selective, and about who we hired and who was, working on the game. And also you can see a distinct shift in the game at that time as well. It was a very different game before and after that.
All right. Well, I got a question for you, Sarah. How was applying your marketing background with the software job to here? I'm sure lots of similarities, but I'm sure certain approaches might be different. I'm not sure. I'm not good at marketing. That's a weak point, something I wish I could work on. And um, like, what's your favorite video game? I know it's a two-pronged question, but
Well, my marketing answer will probably be more long-winded, so I'll just start with the favorite game series of all time is the Ori series from Moon Studios. Obsessed. I'm a big Metroidvania fan in general. But everything from the soundtrack, the art style, the gameplay, everything about it like just hits that sweet spot for me. Both of them, Will of the Wisp and Blind Forest. Um, so yeah, that's huge for me. And funnily enough, before meeting Allie at the day job that we shared together, I wasn't a big gamer. Like I grew up gaming with my sister. We had like the Super Nintendo and the N64, but then kind of after that point, I kind of fell off on gaming regularly until again meeting Allie, and then so it was sort of a leap going from, I have a degree in marketing and I'd been working in the marketing space for, a variety of companies, but I touched on it earlier during my introduction. You can be so much freer and looser and have more fun and like poke fun at things when you're marketing to gamers. And that really appealed to me. And I'd say that's one of the core differences. Like before did a lot of like B2B marketing where it was like very stuffy, professional voice kind of a thing. And with marketing, you can share a meme and like, use the word badass in a caption or something. You know what I mean? Like just little things like that allow me to be more who I am as a person. And that just makes, I think, marketing in general easier when you're just kind of speaking a language that feels more natural to you,
Mhm.
Yeah. Especially when, because I currently work in a situation where marketing, we market to a lot of larger tech companies. And then going from that to kind of doing our marketing, it's like, man, it feels so much better to put my own voice into this because, like, you over here, I got to be professional and use certain terms and words, and over here, I can just be like, hey, like our latest episode that went out this week was what the hell is going on at Xbox, right? And then it's just like,
Yes.
well, I could never say that over here, like,
Mhm.
what the hell is going
Yes.
on with blah blah blah, and it's like, well, you're fired. Okay.
You can't say that.
Yeah.
I would say that was actually like when I first got started because I wasn't as familiar with the gaming audience because I wasn't super active in it myself when we first started 6 years ago. That was one of the challenges that I'd say that I had to like let go of that, let me have this corporate kind of speak. And luckily we had a lot of time to like, get our footing and find the right direction with that. But yeah, I would say funnily enough, that was probably one of the challenges I had at first, just to get to know the audience better, which is rule number one of marketing.
It's I still struggle with that because like part of me still wants to be like super professional with our stuff, but I'm like, that's not our audience. I gotta figure it out. That's
I struggle too. I think it varies too from like platform to platform. Like I'll let you in on a secret. I'm actually horrible at TikTok and like Instagram. And so luckily I have like a team of marketers that help me and they're very tuned in to like those particular audiences and platforms. Like of course LinkedIn's a little more professional sounding than Twitter/X might be. And certainly like the TikTok, Instagram, you can be a lot more relaxed, and then even just the type of content you post is different. So
My gosh,
yeah,
I can
interesting.
relate. My level of social media expertise kind of stops at Instagram. It's like, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and then everyone's like, "Oh, you have TikTok?" I'm like, I'll have you speak to Cordy, who's one of our social media people. Thank goodness for her, because I don't know the TikToks.
I don't know the
Yeah,
TikTok.
it is a language all on its own, and like we have a lot of, we said worldwide diverse, but also like, you know, a wide age range of people that work for us. So thank God we have like some folks that are tapped into like the, you know, the Gen Z lingo, which helps a lot as well for TikTok in particular.
Yeah, that's why our TikTok and Instagram Reel team is all under the age of 28.
It makes sense though. It does.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing over here, so here you go.
You handle that. Yeah, that's kind of what I did too. If I tried to manage it myself, like actually post the content, it'd be like way too wordy, way too boring. Like there's no way.
Yeah. The first thing Cordy said to me on one of our something that I posted early on, she's like, you have a description in your video. I'm like, yeah. She's just like, no, you got to put it in the title. I'm like, oh, okay. Sorry, I wanted to just describe what people might want to watch here.
Yes, yeah, it's a delicate, you know, dance, I feel like. And there's always a new one coming out, like what's going to be the next one that then we all have to like struggle to learn the algorithms and all that kind of stuff.
Totally.
Yeah.
Oh, marketing. So much fun. So I guess I want to kind of move into the game itself,
Yes.
because
You read my mind.
like I said, I love watching the clips on Twitter and all the art moving around and all that kind of stuff. I saw a lot of influences of my initial perception was, and now I'm glad I'm kind of right, because you mentioned Bloodborne, Allie, and I was like, well, there's some fog doors here. There's clearly probably some Dark Souls-esque things going on in here, but I'm like, they're cats, so it might be more Bloodborne. And then there's this image that was floating around of a cat jumping off of a wall, getting ready to assassinate something, and I'm like, there's some Assassin's Creed in here, which I'm all about. And I'm like, so other than Bloodborne, what are the inspirations for this game? Like, where are you trying to take this?
Actually, some of the biggest inspirations, Bloodborne was like a really good original inspiration, but actually, if you play Kristala now and then Bloodborne after, Bloodborne feels slow. Because Kristala is much more fast paced. It's more like Sekiro or Nioh. Because when we started sitting down and talking about like how cats would move, our first thought was, well, they would move like ninjas, right? So at least cat like anthropomorphic beings would. So originally we had got like the skeleton of the game was originally like very similar to Dark Souls, but we had newer people join us and work with us over the years, like I mentioned, and they came in and they were like, hey, you know, the cat should probably jump. So
Yeah.
that was, you know, like I said early on, we were all volunteers, and it was kind of like, you know, you're just getting stuff done when you could and doing your best. So, you know, once things changed and we were able to get more organized, we sat down, we had a really clear vision. We played Nioh 2 and Sekiro again, and got a good feel for the way that the character moves, what we like about it, what, you know, and tried to, we completely overhauled all of our animations. In fact, it took us a while. We were only able to more recently kind of unveil the whole system applied to the felines and some of the enemies and stuff. But I would say our biggest inspirations were originally, you know, Dark Souls, Bloodborne, and then Nioh, Sekiro, and Assassin's Creed, for sure. You know, particularly the traversal. Oh, and also Jedi Fallen Order. We wanted to make sure that the cat could interact with the world in a kind of similar way, maybe more agile in a lot of ways, just using the world to their advantage, and, you know, being able to kind of like rip through it and jump all over the place or be really stealthy. You have a lot of choice in how you can be a cat, basically.
I see a lot of wall running and acrobatic flips in this video that I'm watching right now.
Parkour.
I'm
Yes.
quite
Parkour.
Wow.
I love it.
Nice. Yeah, I'm watching this video. I'm like, this is totally a game I want to play like right now. As someone who's currently playing Hellblade 2, and it's very, the combat is very deliberate and very kind of slow, which I like that too, depending on the game that I'm playing. Like, I know what I'm getting into when I'm playing Hellblade, but if I'm going to play something like Assassin's Creed or Neo or Ninja Gaiden or something, I'm like, I want that fast paced combat that, you can do flips and parries and all these other kinds of things. And I'm obsessed with watching these videos. I can't stop.
Don't ever
You know what?
stop.
I probably should have done this at the start, but if you don't mind, could I just read like that very high level, synopsis of the game? Because I feel like a lot of questions will kind of come from that. And also
Oh,
just
yeah, that makes sense.
heaven forbid you haven't heard of Kristala by now and you're listening to this.
Yeah,
Well,
what are you
you
doing?
better. Yeah.
How
So
are you doing?
for the one person out there that doesn't, Kristalla is a story-rich dark fantasy ARPG featuring classic RPG elements and a Souls-like vibe. Play as a cat-like warrior from one of 6 clans, each with its own unique magic specialty. Yes. Your goal: master the magics of the 6 sacred crystals in hopes of becoming a Raksaka. Did I pronounce that correctly?
You did?
Yeah.
Raksaka warrior, a powerful protector of your species. Simultaneously, you must uncover the source of a dark curse that has mutated Did-
Ylor.
Eilers creatures into bloodthirsty monsters. I apologize, I failed phonics as a kid. So that
It's a
is
hard one.
the summary. So just that first part, so ARPG, action RPG. So you would say that's the kind of the base, the most prominent genre, so to speak, and, like,
Yeah.
basically, how do you balance that with the Souls-like features? 'Cause I'll admit, like, I have not played a lot of Souls-like games because 'cause I'm not a very good gamer, and I am honestly intimidated by it.
A lot of
So I
people feel
just
that
like
way.
Me too.
Just got to be
Actually,
patient, Stephanie.
technically, Souls likes are action RPGs. They're the
Mm,
same thing. It's just they became Souls likes just because of the popularity of Dark Souls. But before that, Dark Souls was an action RPG, so it's just the same. It's the idea that you get to customize your character, and there's a lot of like high action gameplay, right? Good, like hard combat and whatnot.
mhm.
So, I mean, for us though, one of our big concerns was actually that when you say the term Souls-like to somebody, a lot of the time they recoil because they're like, "Oh, a cat game," and then you say Souls-like, and they're like, "Oh, never mind." That's that's intimidating, right? So, and I get that, but we wanted to make sure that Kristalla was a little more open to people who felt that way, and that if you were interested in cats and everything else appealed to you, that it may be an introduction to you to this kind of gameplay. In the full version of Crystal, like the finished game, you'll have a trainer character that you can go back and visit in any of the clan capital cities. So if you're like having a hard time with a certain area and you're like, man, I just cannot figure out how to use this ability to help me or something, you could go and meet with your trainer and practice with no repercussions. You don't die, the trainer doesn't die. You just can go get good. The
Nice.
other thing that we're considering doing is an adaptive difficulty setting where you can turn this adaptive thing on, and if you're really struggling, the game will automatically maybe bring down the health bars of the players or the enemies for a short time until you start doing well again, and then progressively bring you back up to the base difficulty, so that it's not like that frustrating experience. It can still be that way if you want it to be, right? But if you don't want it to be, maybe you can make it a little bit less frustrating when you're feeling like stuck somewhere.
I I think that's a smart feature. I know a lot of fighting games have implemented that over the last decade or so. I know Mortal Kombat and Injustice specifically have implemented that. Uh,
Nice.
Mostly because I'm terrible at fighting games, and they did that for me. So
You can do that for me.
I'm only
uh,
good at like one genre. Thank goodness for making a game in that genre. I'm amazingly good at Souls likes. That's it.
so I know a lot of people think difficulty initially, but to me, like the Souls-like thing is okay. If I die, I lose the
Mhm.
thing. So now I got to go back and find the enemy that's holding my thing, so I can get my experience back. And then I can go continue my quest or whatever. Does that does that happen in this game? Do you
It's
if your cat
definitely a
dies?
feature of most Souls likes, right?
Yeah.
In Kristala, yeah, you do lose some of your XP when you die. And you can go find it. It's not going to be, well, at least not for now. An enemy doesn't have it. You'll find your ghost, and you'll go interact with it, and it gives you your XP back. We are still torn on the precise mechanic for this, on if we want to, how harsh we want to be with it. As of right now, you don't lose all of your XP when you die. It's just like a percentage each time. I'm pretty sure anyway. Hopefully I'm not lying. But that's what I remember talking about with my game design team. So
Guess we'll find out.
Would you like to have, I know there are two different kind of camps, so to speak, on whether or not you want to have different or varying difficulty, like hard mode, standard/normal mode, and easy mode. Is that something that you might want to consider for the game, or you feel like one mode is kind of your way to go?
well, the adaptive difficulty setting kind of is that, right? So if you're doing terribly, the game's going to make it easier on you. It's making it
Okay,
turning it into that mode automatically, right? It
I
just
see.
keeps it just would also bring you back up to, as you improve, you don't just start like wailing your way through the game and stay like that.
Okay.
I really think it comes down to like how gamers feel about it. There's two very intense opposing groups, right? There's some people who really wish that people would add, or that difficulty settings would be in these games, and there are people that are so adamantly against it that you'd be, what's the word I'm looking for? Not abandoning. What is it?
Alienating.
You'd be alienating them by doing it. And it's kind of a difficult spot to be in because we need that audience to play Kristala. So,
And I'm
yeah.
sure the conversation around that is completely civil, right? And you just go down there and everybody's very nice about it and be like, I think they should be this way.
I've literally had people write me out of nowhere like, "You're not going to add difficulty settings to Kristala, are you?"
Oh, wow.
That I don't even know. Like, it's happened a few times.
Yeah,
Which I was,
mean,
it was pretty surprising when that happened, actually. How did you even
the
find
Souls
me?
crowd. They'll find you. The Souls people will find you. I mean, you have streamers over here beating Dark Souls with potatoes and bananas hooked up to some
Right?
contraption, and it's like, what are you
Nuts.
even doing?
They are
So,
diehards. So yeah, that's the thing. We don't want to totally alienate them, but we also would like to make the game more inviting. So our solution is, this adaptive difficulty setting.
Got it. All right. Makes
Since we're
sense.
in early access right now, we may go through different iterations, where we test different things out. It's one of the big bonuses to going with early access is we can try some things, gather feedback, and, if people generally are upset about something, then, oh, good. Well, good thing this wasn't a permanent release yet.
yeah. I think you mentioned it before, but I think you could probably please both crowds by just being able to toggle that feature on and off.
Yeah.
I think you mentioned that before.
Yeah, it would definitely be toggleable. It wouldn't be like by default. You would turn it on.
Yeah.
Or turn it off.
I'm intrigued to see how that works because I also am a terrible gamer, and since I played Bloodborne, I have gotten significantly worse at playing video games. So
It's gotten worse.
No.
Bloodborne's supposed to train you.
I know. Well, here's the thing. I it's gonna sound. People are gonna be like, oh, but I don't think Souls games are hard particularly. I think the challenge comes at people becoming impatient and the unwillingness to grind and learn things.
It's 100% that. They're not that hard. You just have to learn. What it comes down to is there's a specific way to play them. And if you come in playing it like you're playing Call of Duty, you're going to die. You have to play a very specific way. Yep. So that's what I learned like when I first started playing it is I just had to like stop wanting to play it the way I wanted to play it and play it the way I was supposed to play it. And then I got really good at it because it's really not that hard once you realize that.
Yeah. And then you can't play each FromSoft game the same way, right? Like Bloodborne is different from Dark Souls, which is different from Sekiro, right?
Bloodborne and Sekiro are their own games. They wouldn't,
Yeah.
Dark Souls, all three of them, they differ, but it's the same strategy for the most part.
Yeah.
Bloodborne was much more emphasis on parrying because you could use your gun to parry, and it was like way easier than parrying in any other game. And Sekiro had this balance meter kind of thing where blocking was like you blocked constantly. We have a similar kind of deal in Kristala with a balance meter where you can, what's the word I'm looking for? Gosh, I'm having a brain fart on the word. Not riposte,
Stagger,
not parry. No, it's
deflect.
Thank you, deflect. I was like, why can't I? My brain was just poof. So yeah, you could deflect enemies multiple times, and each time you deflect them, it fills up a piece of their balance meter until they're eventually completely staggered, and then you have an opening for a critical attack. Unlike it, in like Bloodborne or one of the others, you stagger them once, and then they go down, and you can launch a critical attack. There's a few different things too. Like in Kristala, there's emphasis on stealth and being a kitty and getting down on all fours, and so we made it so that there are like critical attacks you can launch when you're sneaking around. You don't always have to deflect to get to the point of launching a critical. But that's one of the big areas I think where Sekiro tends to differ from the rest of the franchise. But I've noticed more and more games realizing that that's a pretty cool feature and adding similar stuff to their own. FromSoft is really good at setting standards.
Yeah, they've been pretty influential the last decade or so, we'll say.
Hugely.
But speaking of your game, Kristala, you should check it out, everybody. Check it out. Classes. There are, what did you say, Stephanie? 6 different species? Is that kind of how your clans? Different clans? Do they all play different? Are there different playstyle, or do you just kind of spec your character how you want it, no matter what clan you're part of?
Your clan determines the kind of magic you'll be leveling. So in Kristala, magic is actually really heavily emphasized in general. So you don't just choose to do the magic build. Every build is a magic build. And so your clan just determines what your magic tree is going to be. So the nature clan does like nature-based magic. They're called the Nisarga. The Mirtuna clan, they're necromancers. So they do like, raising the dead and sucking life out of creatures and stuff like that. And so basically you'll have a spell tree that like you'll collect items and you can cash into the spell tree and get more spells. You'll be able to equip 16 spells at once and quickly flip through spell pages to be able to cast in rapid succession. It's a pretty cool concept. I'm a big magic player in these games, so I made everyone play magic.
I humbly request that if you guys ever want to go crazy with physical media and collector's editions, because I'm a sucker for those, I would love to have pins representing each clan.
Oh yeah,
And
awesome.
dang, if you could get a cool manual just with all the art and the stories of every clan, I would buy that and make everyone around me buy
it. We are definitely on that for sure.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, that also, just to piggyback off that, I know we're kind of treading the line between like gameplay stuff versus lore. I'm a huge lore person. I do know that most games will either rely or focus more on one or the other. I feel like with Souls, like, not that I know a lot about Souls, like you definitely have to execute gameplay very well. But this definitely seems like a game that had a lot of thought into the map, the clans, the story, the political intrigue, and everything that would come in it with the lore. So, how did that come about? Did you come up with the story and the characters first, or did you come out with, I want to build this type of game first, and then the story come after?
Actually, okay, so it was an interesting process because when Tiffany and I sat down originally, we were talking about what kind of game we wanted to make, right? I had an idea that was more. It was like kind of a Souls-like game. I won't get into it because someday I still want to make it. But her idea was that we were going to do like a simple 2D side scroller with a cat that at the end would earn a pair of wings and be able to fly, because she was a big fan of the what is it, anime fairy tale with the cats that have little wings, right? So I was like,
Oh,
oh
yeah.
yeah, let's do that because that makes sense. That's not as much work. And so then instead, when we started developing it, we immediately were like, wait a second, we were trained in 3D at school, not 2D. Why would we choose a 2D game? So that started there, and then it just kind of evolved where like originally the idea was that we were going to make this really funny, like pun filled, silly cat game. Um, and then when we started doing that originally, and we made a prototype, and Sarah and I went to a convention in New York City and let people play it. And afterwards, Sarah and I sat down and had a talk about how almost every cat game out there is silly and lighthearted. And we were like, what would make this a lot more interesting is if we made a dark fantasy story kind of game. And so, and at that event, we had been asked a lot about the story. And every time we repeated it, we were like, yeah, this is not the story of this game. So Sarah and I went back that night and we sat down and we really talked out what we wanted to see out of the game. And I think that's when we came up with the clans, and like some background on the world. And then we started having these meetings together every couple of weeks where we would just flesh out more and more of what we wanted to see in the game world. And then luckily we were only at the prototyping stage. So our prototype was just a humanoid cat kicking humanoid rats' butts, right? So that was easy to adapt. It was still the same thing. So, we got really into the story at that point. Then we brought in somebody who was a good writer and told him what we wanted. And he started coming up with these really cool lore pieces and kind of connecting everything. One of my big things is I'm a huge fan of Souls-like games, but I'm also a huge fan of games like The Last of Us, where the story is deeply impactful and meaningful. And one of the things I've always felt was kind of missing from the Souls games that I'd played is even when I went and researched the stories afterwards, and I never paid attention to them during, I had no idea what was going on. You had to research them afterwards. And then I would do that and be like, yep, I still don't know, but I just read. I still don't know what any of that was. I sort of have this vague understanding, but I guess that's good enough. The games are really fun, so like, who cares, right? And I think a lot of people feel that way about those games. You could skip the story entirely and it doesn't matter. And technically, we want to still be able to let people who feel that way play that way, right? They don't care about the story. They don't have to absorb it, right? But I wanted to make sure, though, that when you played Kristala, you could follow the story. The story meant something. It was impactful. You didn't necessarily it's not a bad thing to go read up more stuff. Like there's definitely a much deeper world lore than what we can just lay out on a platter in the game without it getting bloated, right? Like we've done a lot. I think we should do a graphic novel of the game later. But I wanted to make sure that you could enjoy to follow the story and actually understand what you'd read about and like what was happening. Like it made kind of linear sense, but it also like meant a lot to you, and it wasn't just dry either. Like, oh, I'm reading journal entry after journal entry. Like I wanted to make sure there was interaction with NPCs, and there was there's journal entries, but there's also like audio recordings you can find. They're not really audio recordings. They're like these played out historical scenes happening in the world thanks to magic imprints that people leave behind. But they're audio scenes essentially. And it, just a bunch of different ways that you could interact with the story, and it would have impact and also make sense.
I
Awesome. I
appreciate
love it.
that. As someone who is a we'll say a big Destiny fan, a story that doesn't really make sense until later. I appreciate that very much. The fact that I had to buy 6 books to understand a lot of the story.
I mean, I guess it's smart in a marketing perspective and a merchandising perspective, right? Get people to go think more about your game. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. I just personally like it like when a game literally will make me cry out of nowhere or something, when it actually means something to me when I'm playing it. It doesn't just feel like, pixels on a screen and I'm kicking something's butt for no reason.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness, I'm just getting chills. I can't wait. I'm definitely more of a narrative story driven gamer, but if there is excellent gameplay, I mean, that's the best of both worlds right there.
We do have one Patreon question. If you are a silver member or above to the Boss Rush Network's Patreon, you can write in questions to our spotlight threads. This comes from Sam Hall. We kind of already answered the first part of your question, Sam. Sorry. What games inspired you? But the second part, are there any ways you've taken mechanics that you were inspired by and gave them your own twist?
Yeah, quite a bit actually. I mean, like that's like a lot of the game. I guess one would be the feline skill tree. So there's a lot of like skill trees in RPGs, right? Like it's a common thing, but we put our own twist on it by making it completely feline related. So as you play through the game, you'll get the ability to do all sorts of neat feline related skills or improve on the ones you already have. Like you can become like this super stealth ninja if you go through that tree, or have like night vision, or you can see enemies through walls or things like that. Things that are very specifically feline. I would say another one would be the way we've done a lot of our traversal throughout the world, as well as the combat and the deflection system. I mean, it's its own thing, but it's also definitely inspired by Sekiro in particular, which seems to be happening a lot more lately.
Yes, the term Sekiro, like I feel like I've seen in media about, which is interesting.
Yeah.
No, yeah, there was in the Game Rant article that they wrote about us recently. They call it Kristala Sekiro, like.
Yes.
Yeah. Very accurate.
So cats do a lot of dumb things, right? Real cats do a lot of dumb things, like I don't know, knock things off of counters. And are there any cat inside jokes in the game where like, oh, there's somebody one of the cats just knocks a bowl off a table for no reason or something, or something like that? Are there any jokes like that in this game?
Definitely.
Yes.
Yes.
Now I can't promise that they'd be in early access, but there will be, in the
Well, there is an alchemist character NPC, and I just saw recently an animation that the team made where she's like, you have to collect ingredients for a quest. I won't say too much about it since it'll be in early access, but she's like hawking up a hairball like into her big cauldrons, just like little things like that where it's like back to cat, I feel like.
Yeah, that's a good one to bring up. Yeah. I saw that the other day too. I forgot we decided on that.
I laughed really hard. I was like, yes, this is great.
Well, speaking of early access, I think that'd be a great time as we kind of, wrap up this interview that it's official, so we can say it. You guys, post on social media today, which is May 28th at the time of this recording, that Kristala is officially coming to early access on Steam June 6th, which is pretty close. That is just a little over 1 week away. So congratulations on firming up that date. I'm very excited. I will be there to try it out.
Awesome.
Yay. Yes, thank you. Long road, but it's so exciting to be here. And it's it's like go time,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's exciting. I mean, it's always exciting when you are launching something, but I mean, as somebody who's always wanted to make a game and just never has, because I don't think I'm not smart enough or patient enough to try to do that. This must be very exciting for your entire team, right? So congratulations on this launch into early access. I'm excited I've been seeing a lot of PlayStation 5 ads on social media as well. I see this physical box art with this cool cover art, and I'm like, I kind of maybe need that for my shelf. Have you announced final platforms yet, or are you just kind of waiting and seeing, or is this kind of like a goal that you guys have?
Oh yeah, we're going to be doing all major consoles. We're just doing Steam first because they have the best early access program, but we're actually in the process of applying for Xbox's early access program as well.
Ooh.
So hopefully a release there will follow the Steam one relatively quickly. Fingers crossed, or knock on wood or something.
Awesome.
Yeah. And then PlayStation doesn't seem to have that quite as much. So it'd be more likely to happen at the full release, which we're planning to have finished before Q4 2025. And also Switch, though it may end up being the next version of Switch by the time we're done. But we are definitely going to make sure that Kristala is on all major consoles.
Ooh, can you imagine, Corey, on if it was on the next iteration of the Switch, which is supposed to be quote unquote powerful as a what is it? They said they're aiming for like a Series S type power.
That would be
I've
nice.
heard multiple things. PlayStation 4 Pro to Series S,
All right,
somewhere
well,
in there. But
just better than now.
yeah,
That would be
And
good. Because right now it's less powerful than a cell phone. So we were looking into how to do this, and it is possible, but it'd probably be better for everybody if it was on Switch too. Or it may end up being on both. We'll see what happens.
True.
oh my
It'll probably
goodness.
be our last port for that reason.
Fair. If you want to take your time with making a port to the Nintendo platform done correctly, because
Mhm.
if it becomes a really crappy port to the Switch, then you just wasted a whole bunch of time.
yeah,
I've definitely played a few of those, so
Yeah.
I was a little iffy on it until I ended up speaking with some good porting agencies that gave me assurance that they felt it could be done. Because until that point, I was like, I don't know, guys, I don't know if we can make Kristala work for that, but I do feel pretty confident that we can.
Take your time, and then the Switch gamers will eventually buy. That's just how it works.
Yeah, I mean, even if it comes out later, right? But also, as somebody who's been covering Nintendo for the better part of 10 years now, like, if you don't think it's worth it, I would wait till the next console at this point. Because there are some good ports, don't get me wrong, but there are also some pretty bad ones. And
Yes.
I would hate to see Kristall on the list of
Bad ones, yeah.
yeah.
Yes,
So,
same.
yeah.
Agreed, 100%. I definitely don't want it to be, because I mean, Switch would be a great platform for it in general because it's best played with a controller, like a lot of games like that. And there aren't a lot of Souls-like games so far on the Switch, so it seems like a kind of a good spot. I mean, it's probably second to Xbox, the one we get the most requests for.
Okay, nice.
Surprisingly enough, but yeah, Xbox for some reason is like the constant ask.
Yeah. I'm usually one of those people because that's my preferred platform. Even though they are strange, I don't want to get into it right now.
Don't get into it, Corey. Don't start.
I will go on for another 2 hours about how strange Microsoft is being at the moment, but we're not going to get into that. I always ask if a game is coming to Xbox, especially a game like this, because that's my preferred platform. I enjoy the controller more. I just enjoy the experience more. But understandable why a lot of indie studios skip the platform.
I mean, it's a lot of work and it's expensive, and I mean, luckily we can do it ourselves internally, though. We're kind of it'll be faster if we can get a partner on it with us. So it just comes down to how much budget we have to work with.
I just thought of this question just now. Have you thought about maybe attempting one of the subscription service things like Game Pass at all?
Yeah, definitely. We're doing our application for the early access thing, but we were also kind of hoping to get on Game Pass at the same time. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah,
it's in Xbox's hands, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. I just didn't know at this point if Game Pass money was worth it. If you're like smaller games, maybe it's worth it, maybe it's not. You never know. So
to be honest, I'm not sure. I haven't seen what an offer for that would be like. I'm not 100% certain how advantageous it is or not, but I'm definitely open to it. It seems like it's pretty high demand. Like from the Xbox gamers we have spoken to, they're always asking if we'll do Game Pass.
Well, yeah, you won't know till you get, ask for that information. And
I mean, it could be
research
highly
and stuff.
advantageous to us given our, position as an indie studio and releasing early access and, having to depend on the funds from early access to continue going. So, if we go to Game Pass and they're like, hey, get on Game Pass and you can easily finish development, well, then that's an easy yes.
and Game Pass isn't opposed to putting game preview stuff on there either. So
Well, actually, that also leads to probably my last question as well. So I know you have a Kickstarter. Your Kickstarter, has goal has been met and has ended. So when listeners who are interested in Kristala have listened to this podcast outside of Kickstarter, and obviously, of course, purchasing and playing early access on Steam, tell us like how fans, potential players could support you guys to make sure that you can see Kristala in its fullest extent.
Sure. Yeah. So actually, it'll only be live for up until we release early access officially on June 6th. But we have a pre-order store live right now, and you can essentially get pretty much any of the tiers or items that were available during the Kickstarter, as well as just ordering a digital copy of early access for PC/Steam, or if you want to pre-order a digital copy for consoles, there is also that physical PS5 copy, Corey, you were mentioning earlier, available there. So you can pre-order now through, I'd say, June 5th. We'll probably shut that down. You can also wishlist us, of course. That's very helpful. We also offer a playtesting tier on our Patreon. So if you wanted to get kind of like inside scoop to new big updates that are coming as we continue to develop the game through early access and beyond, you can support us there as well. And then if you want to just follow along our development journey and help share any of our content, that is appreciated as well. We are at ACS Games across all socials, except for TikTok. That's our special one, at Kristala Game. So yeah, you can find us pretty much anywhere and everywhere. We try to make that happen. So we were considering, so here's we talked about shutting down the backer kit store, but then adding some bundled items and tiers, like continuing to pre-order the console copies on our own merch store. So it will live elsewhere.
That makes
but
sense.
The backer kit store will probably, but we'll, of course, if we do end up continuing to sell any of our digital items that are currently on the backer kit store, we'll shift it over to our merch shop. So if you did want a digital console copy post-release, you might be able to find one there on our merch shop, but more details to come on that for sure.
Yeah, I'll have to get some links from you so we can share it in Discord, and we have a interesting Kickstarter / indie game channel in our Discord that we kind of like to promote our friends who are making games and stuff like that. So we'll definitely get that in there as well.
Yeah, we'll have to join the Discord too, so we'll have to get links from you all as well.
Yeah. Sure. And we'll put it in the show notes on the website. We'll put it in the everywhere we possibly can, and we'll, if we can help promote it any way we can, we're going to continue to do that as well. And I'll just keep retweeting those videos because they're awesome.
They are.
I'm and thank you very much. Yeah, that means a lot. And thank you so much for having us as well. But I did just put in the chat that are all my links that pretty much has like everything. If there's something specific that is not there that we either mentioned, it should all be there. We try to keep it thick on the All My Links profile with all the links.
Great. So, yeah. So there'll be links in the show notes. Yeah, all these will be in the show notes, so you guys can check it out. Listeners, thank you for joining us, Sarah and Ali. This was great. I'm very much looking forward to this. Is there a specific place you want people to go to find you, or you just want these typical places? Website, Steam. I guess the Steam page would probably be the best way.
Steam would be great. Yeah, even if you can't, you can't purchase the game right now, even just traffic to our Steam page is very helpful on release. So sharing, visiting, checking it out. We'll be sharing updates as we go on Steam too for any upcoming, patches or further game updates, which will be coming frequently.
Wish listing.
Yes. Wish listing is very helpful.
Well, thank you for joining us. This was great. Yeah. I'm very excited for Kristala. Everybody out there, go wishlist the game on Steam. Go check it out. Check out their stuff. I'll be retweeting videos all the time because I like the combat. There's some flipping cats with shields and parrying. I'm obsessed. Stephanie, thank you for your time as well tonight.
Oh, no problem. I've been looking forward to this interview for a while, and I'm not just saying it because we're recording, but your team has made such an impression on me at PAX. I really genuinely believe you guys have a gem of a game here. So I wish you guys all the success next week and in the future.
Thank you.
Thank
That's
you.
awesome.
And just very quick, you also, Stephanie, made a great impact on us at PAX. I want you to know that. We spoke to like a couple media outlets, and you were definitely one of our absolute favorite
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
folks to chat with. Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you. We appreciate this very much.
Yeah, this was great. Everybody out there, thank you so much for watching and or listening. If you want to support us, you can head to our Patreon at patreon.com/Boss Rush Network. You can subscribe to YouTube. If you're listening to this on audio feeds, leave us a review, rating, all that stuff. Astral Clocktower Studios, all of their links will be in the show notes as well. Thank you guys so much for watching and or listening. And until next time, we love you. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
If you want to see how you can become a Patreon producer, head on over to patreon.com/Boss Rush Network. The Patreon producers for this month are Adriel Munger, Austin Campbell, Celeste Roberts, Christian S., Sana Dirrig, Francisco Santillan, Matthew Keel, and Todd Oxtra. Thanks for your continued support of the Boss Rush Network.